Hello everybody, my name is LaCroix, this is WiseHQ, and welcome to the first episode of our brand new series, Character Debrief, a crash course in everything you need to know about your favorite Spy X Family characters. This originally started off as me wanting to make some analyses videos, but I figured this would be more fun to make and watch, so here we are. Speaking of fun, at least for myself, I'm going to start off the show strong with my favorite character, and who is arguably the main protagonist of the entire series, Agent Twilight. Now before we get started, it goes without saying that this video contains heavy spoilers for the anime and manga, so you've been warned. Also, if you happen to like the video, please give us a thumbs up and share with your friends, as we're really trying to grow our channel and every little bit helps. Now with all that out of the way, let's get started. In the beginning of the first chapter of the manga, we are introduced to Westalis and Ostania, two countries locked in a bitter cold war as a result of a bloody war that happened in the not-so-distant past. The death of a Westalis diplomat causes tensions to rise between the two, and it falls on the Westalian Intelligence Service's Eastern Focus Division, or WISE, to keep total war from breaking out. Q Wise's best agent, codenamed Twilight. He's the master of disguise, known to use hundreds of different faces on his missions, and whose identity is completely unknown, except to his fellow WISE agents. He is as reliable as he is skilled at what he does, which makes him the perfect candidate for his next mission, Operation Strix. The goal of Strix is to get close to Donovan Desmond, the suspected mastermind of the diplomat's assassination, among other things. Donovan leads a powerful political organization, the National Unity Party, and is notoriously difficult to get in contact with. In order for Twilight to even get a chance at him, he is tasked with infiltrating the prestigious and extremely selective Eden Academy, which Donovan's son attends, and all he has to do to get in is marry and have a child in 7 days. That doesn't even include the task of ensuring the child becomes an honor student, aka Imperial Scholar, nor does it include the bonus mission of getting in close to Donovan's 6-year-old son Damien, but we're not going to talk all about that in this episode. In order to achieve his goal, Twilight goes deep undercover as a psychiatrist named Loid Forger. He quickly adopts a young girl, Anya, from a shady orphanage, not realizing she is in fact a former secret test subject with the power to read people's minds. The more you know. Together, the two successfully stumble through Eden Academy's entrance exams, and not long after that, Loid finds and quote-unquote marries his would-be wife, Yor Briar, who, unbeknownst to him, is actually an assassin on the side of Ostania. The obliviousness is mutual, by the way. From then on, the series revolves around the three of them together figuring out how to maintain the guise of a normal Ostanian family, with Loid Forger / Twilight usually trying to put out fires either caused by his wife and daughter or involving them one way or another. Twilight was born and raised in Lewin, a small town in eastern Westalis near the Ostanian border. He spent much of his childhood playing soldier with his three best friends, who often referred to him as Advisor in lieu of his actual name. The four of them all had dreams of joining the army when they grew up, though Twilight's father was vehemently against this, and was not above trying to beat such ideas out of him. He, like other adults at the time, believed there wasn't going to be a war between the two countries, and instead demanded that Twilight focus on his studies. One day, on the eve of a town festival, Ostania invaded Westalis. Lewin was one of the first places hit, which resulted in the supposed death of Twilight's friends and much of the town's population. He and his mother managed to escape to Kielberg to live with extended family, whilst his father's fate currently remains unknown. Twilight would go on to live in constant fear of shelling. He only ever felt safe with his mother, which made it all the more traumatic when a raid on Kielberg resulted in her gruesome death, the aftermath of which he was tragically made witness to. Twilight would then spend the rest of his childhood on the streets, until joining the army years later under false pretenses. From then on, his goal was to kill as many Ostanians as possible, until a chance encounter with his future informant, Frankie, would make him start to reevaluate his outlook on the war. Following that, Twilight would go on to discover that his three friends did in fact survive the bombing of Lewin, and after a heartfelt reunion, they promised him that they would all celebrate after their squad returned from deployment, which it unfortunately never did. After losing his friends for a second time, Twilight lamented his inability to do anything. He had an epiphany concerning the ignorance of sin and the pointlessness of war. Around the same time, a recruiter arrived and revealed he knew Twilight's real name. He gave him an ultimatum: either join Army intelligence or be court-martialed for lying about his identity. Twilight ended up taking the former, not for his country or the war, but rather to keep children from crying and suffering as he once did. From that point on, he was trained by his handler, Sylvia Sherwood, and 10 odd years later, he has become the Twilight that we know today. Alright, so we're at that part of the video now where things start to change depending on whether we're talking about anime Twilight or manga Twilight. You see, if you ask somebody who reads the manga what kind of a person Twilight is, you'll probably get an answer somewhere along the lines of him being cold, calculated, efficient, or any combination of the three. Now that's not to say he's cruel or anything, unlike some of his fellow wise agents. In fact, Twilight has shown multiple times that he'll avoid killing enemies unless absolutely necessary, even if that might be a detriment to himself in the long run. Even so, manga Twilight tries to go out of his way to be as detached as possible, both from his missions and his own family. Fans who only watch the anime and don't read the manga probably see Twilight as much softer than his manga counterpart, or more specifically Loid Forger. The anime goes out of its way to really highlight the moments where Twilight's mask falls, usually when he's at home just hanging out with his wife and daughter. He's still very much Agent Twilight in the anime, it's just that you definitely see him smiling and blushing a lot more than you'd ever see him do on print and paper, and the distinction between him and Loid Forger is a lot more apparent than in the manga. Now, as far as the persona of Loid Forger is concerned, he's the ultimate father and husband for the mission. That's usually his go-to excuse whenever he does something with/for his wife and daughter, so much so that it's become a fandom meme at this point. There is evidence that Twilight does have a soft spot for his family, especially in later chapters. Though if you want to get technical, which we do here, Twilight is still very much locked in the professional, I'm going to leave my family at the end of Operation Strix territory. Now, regardless of which canon we're referring to, we don't really know all that much about the man behind Twilight. He is genuinely a good person deep down, as his motivations for everything are to prevent war from happening and save as many lives as possible. He has a certain disposition towards playing different roles on a fundamental level, as he's been doing it ever since he was a kid. The same goes for his practicality and ingenuity, as evidenced by his jerry-rigging of traps and whipping out bullshit on the fly whenever he needs to. I'm looking at you, Bondman animation chapter. And, interestingly, Twilight also seems to have a soft spot for dogs. He was very sympathetic towards Keith's dog during the Innocent Crisis arc, and holds no resentment towards him when Sylvia adopts it in later chapters, despite it almost having mauled him to death. He's also uncharacteristically open with Bond, talking with him as an actual person, and also letting his guard down around him every so often. Now that could just be because Bond can't talk and won't reveal his secret, though I'd like to believe that Twilight just really likes his floofy boy. Hey Crow, how good is Twilight at beating people up? Well, I'm glad you asked that, my dear viewer, because that happens to be my favorite subject. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video with the long list of things Twilight has at his disposal to make you not alive anymore. Let's start with his physical strength first. Twilight's wife, Yor Forger, aka Thorn Princess, is the strongest character in Spy X Family that we know of. And the Eyes Only official fanbook, series creator Tatsuya Endo states that if Yor is 100 on the strength scale, then Twilight is about a 60 or 70. Even if we lowball that number and put Twilight at a 60, that still puts him far above pretty much everybody else in the series. For context of what that looks like, let's consider Winston Wheeler. The former Ostanian mole is one of the toughest single fighters we've seen so far in terms of both strength and combat ability. He was able to easily evade and dispatch multiple wise agents, even when completely surrounded with guns aimed at him, and holds the distinction of being the first antagonist we've seen able to take down an injured Twilight in a fight. It literally took Agent Nightfall going all out and destroying her own body in the process just to overpower him. Mind you, this is the same Nightfall who beat roided up super athletes to a pulp with nothing but a tennis ball, and who was able to stop your supersonic serve dead in its tracks, albeit briefly. Knowing that, Nightfall still implies that even at Wheeler's current level, he still wouldn't be able to take a fully healthy Twilight in a fight. This claim is backed up when you look at Twilight's greatest feat in either the manga or anime. In Chapter 2, Twilight takes on 38 armed smugglers all at once, not including reinforcements. Now, even though he doesn't take them all out and gets a little banged up in the process, it's still very impressive. The anime goes even farther with this in episode 5 and has Twilight take on 57 trained wise agents in a castle raid scenario. Assuming that each of those agents is at least partially competent in a fight, it makes it all the more incredible that Twilight doesn't even get a single scratch on him during the whole encounter. So, okay, he's physically strong, but what else can Twilight do? Well, Endo has gone on to state that if Twilight has access to guns and traps, that both he and Thorn Princess are on the same level in a fight. The guns are pretty self-explanatory. He's an expert marksman due to his spy training and military background. Subterfuge is his real strength though, and that includes both his disguises and trap making skills. I already mentioned it at the beginning of this video, but Twilight is famous for his seemingly infinite number of disguises. He can impersonate someone with as little as a picture of them, and his masks are so insanely accurate that it's near impossible to distinguish him from the real thing. He's also very good at imitating voices and mannerisms, though his accuracy varies significantly depending on how well he knows the person he's disguised as. As for his traps, almost every example of them involves explosives one way or another. Really, you could say he's an explosives expert in general, as he was able to identify Keith's trap in the Innocent Crisis arc with Anya's help, and also able to defuse a bomb rigged to explode during the cruise arc with relative ease. This could also be why Handler chose to send him in during the bus hijacking arc, as he was the most qualified person to handle the bombs on board despite him being compromised due to Anya's involvement. Finally, Twilight's intellect cannot be overstated. He is by far the smartest person in this series to a disgusting degree, able to do literally anything the story needs him to do. Even worse, everything he does can just be summed up by him being a literal genius. The man can memorize conversation threads 6 or 7 subjects in advance. He can deduce what someone is thinking or feeling by how often they blink or the sound of their footsteps. And, the most bullshit of all, can tell apart 200 different penguins by memorizing what they eat and their place in the pecking order, all within the manner of a half hour or so. Just like Nightfall said, you really can't beat the guy, unless you're a little girl with pink hair and horns, or a pretty lady with a sweater and a smile. Thank you so much for watching the video. Really hope you enjoyed it. We've got a few more episodes planned for the rest of the Forgers, and then we've also got a few different videos planned after that, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, check out our podcast, and hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.